Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Power Books Live. Today, we are so excited because we are talking with celebrated author Ellen Birkett Morris, and we're talking about her debut collection entitled Lost Girls. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. I mean, what an excellent collection of stories. Would you call them flash fiction or short stories, or where do you fall in that whole conversation?
Yeah, they're short stories, but there are a couple pieces in there that are definitely flash. There are a couple pieces that are two or three pages long. A couple of the stories are, and so they're generally very concise. But I think all told, I'd call them short stories.
Yeah, I really enjoy one of your reviewers talked about how concise the writing is and how much like poetry. And I personally like flash because I'm redactive, right? I like to take things away, and my MFA teachers were always saying, "No, you need to expand. You need to expand. You need to expand." And I was like, "I don't want to expand." So I ended up with a thesis of flash memoir, if you will. Uh,
Right.
but I love how it challenges you um, to to use the language and to be precise uh, with the language. Do you find that you enjoy that as well?
I really do. I started as a poet, so I come by it
Ah,
honestly. Yeah, yeah. And the other thing it does for me is that really, by being so concise, what I'll end up doing is having to really carefully select the objects and items in the story because they're going to carry a lot of metaphoric weight. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining them, but
yeah,
they're going to carry a lot of weight for the reader. So
yeah,
I enjoy that challenge.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
and you met the challenge well. Uh, my I think favorite of the stories is the story. Gosh, my brain has died. Inheritance,
Oh,
inheritance. Um, and I was taken aback by the corpse cakes and eating sin. And I was like, wow, he and of course, in this particular story, the young woman is being basically abused by the mine owner.
yes,
And then when you talk about, and so she's being used as a receptacle, right? She's
right.
being used as a receptacle. And then you talk about her being a sin eater, and now she's going to be a receptacle again. I mean, just amazing imagery, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell is a corpse cake?
Well, I can tell you this comes from a real folk tradition that came over from England to the
Uh,
American South and is still practiced. Some people say still practiced
wow.
in cultures. And really, what it is, I mean, it was for me, the writer, this idea of people who are disadvantaged having to take it and take it and take it again. As you said, become a receptacle for somebody else's wants and needs and desires. And so I learned this from my stepsister, who is from Western Virginia, and it literally is somebody that comes in. When somebody's died, they put the person is laid out. They bake these little cakes that they call corpse cakes, and they pay the sin eater to symbolically take on the sins of the person. And dare I say that the richer they are, the heavier the sin, perhaps. And that's an actual thing that was done. And folks believed that it made some sort of difference. Folks believed that they were actually cleansing their relatives of sin. So when I got the story idea, I was so intrigued by it and waited for years to really find the right story. And then this came to me, and boy, it was challenging to write, hard to go where I needed to go
Yeah,
in
I
that
bet.
story.
I
Yeah.
bet it's a powerful story, and as are all the stories, though. I think it's really interesting. Did you write? You didn't write. You didn't originally write them to go together, right? Is
You
that
know,
right?
well, originally I was working on a different sort of project. I had a thing where a male photographer from Boston was traveling through the South in the bicentennial 1976. And, he was not interesting enough to carry these stories. But what I found is that the women in the stories that I had, put him in the stories with were far more interesting. And so I pulled him out of most, if not all, of the stories. He was in the story Kodachrome. He is the photographer that takes the picture of the little girl who is enamored of her own colors.
Um,
Um, but I took him out of the rest of the stories and really found that what I had was a collection of really cohesive stories that dealt entirely just with women and girls. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
and we love to hear that. I mean, our voices are not heard often enough, and even in 2021, and that's one of the reasons why Power Books exists, is so that we can, shine a light on the writing of women, about women, for women. So we're so excited when you reached out. I was like, oh wow, by the way, you're the first author who's approached us. Yay.
Wow, wow. Well, I have to
Way
say,
to do it.
when I found you all, I just thought this is it. This is a match made in heaven here.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. I'm so excited. So excited to have the book. And for those of you who are listening, Lost Girls is on our website and available in our inventory. You can buy it today, every day. And you need it. You need this collection because it's a wonderful collection of stories. I've said what my favorite one is. What's your favorite story?
I have to say my favorite one is Religion, which is the story of the lonely virgin who thinks she's going to a decoupage class but wanders into a breastfeeders league meeting.
Uh,
And she finds that they're so warm and wonderful that she does not want to leave. She actually goes home and returns again to the meeting in spite of the fact that she has no child. And it's a story about loneliness. It's a story about how you can become kind of obsessed about things. And she decides she wants to feel the experience of breastfeeding, and she tries to make it happen. And that was another story that when I wrote it, I was like, oh my God, I've got to go there, here we go, so
I bet. Do you have
yeah.
children, Ellen?
No, I don't.
See, me either. So that's an interesting topic to delve into, right? How was that hard? I mean,
It wasn't really. What I like to say to people is that while the scenarios are fictional, the emotions are real. And so, we've all known loneliness and wanted to be part of a particular group. And so that part was easy to tap into. When I first started writing the story, I actually thought it would be a story about social pressure, about the way groups are cultish and want us to behave in certain ways. But when I got into the heart of the story, it was like, no, wait a minute. This is purely about loneliness. This is about her desire to want to belong. And she's found this warm place and she's going to stay there, whether
yeah,
she belongs or not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She carves out a spot for herself.
Right.
Carves out a spot for herself. I love that because I always think about Toni Morrison and Beloved, and the idea of claiming oneself.
Yeah.
There's so many ideas out there about who women are and what women should do and what women should be. And I love the idea of a woman finding herself and deciding, this is who I be, take it or leave it. I find it comes to women once they hit their 50s.
Yeah, absolutely.
I call it the fuck you 50s, because at that point it's like, if you don't like me, so what? I don't care.
Love that. Love that so much. Yeah.
Well, how did you decide that writing was where you wanted to be? How did you decide you wanted to be an author? How did you decide
Yeah.
what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, I'll say my father was a writer. I grew up with a father who wrote. He wrote detective mysteries set in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. And so I watched him as I was growing up. I'd be running back and forth into the kitchen for snacks while I watched TV, or running in and out the door playing. And he was at the kitchen table at a typewriter pounding out these stories. And it didn't look like much fun, but he read us so many stories. Story was such a part of our life. And then when I watched him get his books published and saw what that was like for him to find readers, to share his vision of the world with folks, it was clear to me, that was something I really wanted to do. I'll be honest, though, I was afraid. I'd be bad at it. I waited until I was in my mid-30s to really start working at it. So if I could have a do-over, that would be my do-over, would be that I would have embraced it earlier. But one way or another, once I decided to do it, there was no letting go of it. So
I read that you have your first story. You still have the first thing that you wrote.
Yeah. Written in crayon on lined paper, bound with ribbon. So
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah.
That's awesome. I hope you've got it laminated or something so that it will.
I need to do that. I've got to do that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I wrote a song when I was a kid, and I gave it to the singer that I was wanting to sing the song, and she ended up with it, and I don't have it, and she passed away. So it's just terrific that I have no idea what I wrote at this point, but I just know that I enjoyed her singing, and I wrote this song, and she actually kept it. Her husband later told me that she kept it, which I thought was wonderful.
Wow. Yeah.
So, interesting thing for you to have and to refer to, right? Because you can see where you started, and now you can see where you're at. You're published, and your stories have appeared in all these journals, and it must be a great feeling.
It really has been so gratifying, just because it was a dream. And then when I hear from women who read the stories, and there'll be women who will say to me, I have a lost girl story for you. And they'll share some personal history, and there's nothing like it. I mean, it just gets you, to know that these resonated with them, that they don't feel alone, that they feel like they have a story to share. That's all I could dream of, that's it.
It's fantastic. I was so excited when I saw and really kind of delved into the stories. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing, because so many of us never get our story told, right?
Right.
We never get our story told. We never find our own voice. And so, it's sort of like you're a surrogate mother, right? You birth these stories out into the world, and people can see themselves. So it's tremendous. It's tremendous. I'd love to have you read a bit for us.
Oh, I would love to read for you. I guess what I might do is delve right into the title story, Lost Girls.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It.
here we go. Lost Girls. When I was 18, 13-year-old Dana Lampton disappeared from the strip mall across from her family's apartment. My mind should have been on other things, guys, college, getting past the ID checker at the door of the club, but Dana's disappearance captured my attention. We lived in the same neighborhood, and the nearness of the crime creeped me out. As a kid, even before Dana disappeared, I was sure that I would be the girl that was taken. I was always on edge, waiting for the next catastrophe, the next fight, my dad moving out, my world collapsing around me as my mother cried day after day. With me gone, those don't tell your father shopping trips wouldn't have happened. My dad wouldn't have had anyone to complain to about my mom either. Her stupidity, her tackiness. Not that anyone would notice if I was gone. My parents were so busy fighting that a change of scenery would have been appealing at times. Why not abduction? The kidnapping of Patty Hearst made the possibility seem even more real to me. Forget the fact that my family had trouble putting together enough money to take a family vacation or buy a new car, much less raise a pile of ransom money. After Patty was taken, any middle-aged man walking down my street with his hands in his pockets was cause for alarm. I almost freaked out when my new friend's hippie dad pulled up to the yard when we were playing and yelled for us to get into the van. Images of child slavery rolled through my head. I'd be kept in some commune, forced to mix batches of granola and make homemade yogurt day and night. I even dreamed about being kidnapped. My captor bore a striking resemblance to the 70s television character Archie Bunker. In the dream, his mother, a kindly gray-haired lady, offered me cake. I woke up in a cold sweat, convinced I had tasted the icing. As time passed, I realized I was just too old to be kidnapped anymore. Dana had taken my place. When she came up missing, the FBI combed every inch of the nearby field. The local paper ran her picture once a week for the first year. When I saw her parents on television, arm in arm, united in their grief, I had a flash of envy. My parents had divorced 4 years before, wrapped up in their own lives. While I tried to figure out high school and how to keep my grades up on my own, my parents requested my presence for drunken midnight weeping sessions and second marriages. I always showed up. Years went by, and still there was no sign of Dana. How does somebody just vanish? In my imagination, I see her getting older, locked in at night, moving from apartment to apartment, somebody's prize. And me on the outside, following my usual routine, school, dates, graduation, college, first job. Sometimes I feel like I'm living for the both of us. I stop and look around, noticing my freedom, the feeling of the sun on my face, my ability to hop in my car and go wherever I want. Why Dana? I can only guess it was an accident of timing. Who knows how often we cruise the aisles of the grocery store next to a sex offender or drive away from the convenience store as a robber pulls into the lot. Is it fate? Karma? There are no free rides, that's for sure. All we can do is watch our backs and hope for the best. I can't seem to forget her. Each birthday, I do a quick calculation comparing her would-be age to my own. Every few years, I come here and leave something for Dana. Tampons, an old set of car keys, a graduation cap. She'll be 21 this year. Tonight, I'll leave this bottle of Jack Daniels. By morning, it'll be gone.
That just is haunting. It's haunting, that your narrator marks the time for Dana. And at the same time, I'm sure she's marking time for herself, but she's marking the time and remembering or commemorating the things that we do at a coming of age, right? The tampons, the car keys, all of those big firsts,
right?
That Dana didn't experience at all, or didn't experience with her loved ones.
Right.
You were inspired by a real story.
Yeah. I was inspired by a kidnapping that happened in my neighborhood of a young Russian immigrant when I was 18 and she was 13. And really, to me, and there has been coverage through the years at various anniversaries, but my thought was, how many women and girls disappear completely and are not remembered, to a person. It happens so often, and the idea of finding a way to remember and commemorate somebody who they've tried to erase in that way, was really what I was going for there. To honor all the lives of women and girls who have done nothing more than simply walk down the street at the wrong time, and so it was really powerful to write it. I originally wrote it as a dramatic monologue. It's received a stage reading at Cincinnati's Arnoff Center. Yeah. And so that was fantastic to actually see somebody on stage making it come to life. It was really remarkable.
Oh, I bet. And you read well. You read your stories well. I say this to authors who do, because I have heard authors who cannot read their work. I mean, they just don't have any affect. They're just like, and
Right.
I mean, I think we need a class. Like, I think we need a class for authors, called Reading Your Work Out Loud.
Right. Right.
But you bring feeling to it. You bring feeling to it. I think most people are just nervous, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but I think it's so wonderful when you're able to deliver your story out loud, and because there's something about it, right? There's something about hearing those words off the page and out into the world, right? It
Right.
makes it more real, I think. Um, yeah, so exciting. Oh my God. Um, well, um, I wanted to ask about what you're doing next. What's going on? What's you now that you've got this baby in the world, what's
Yeah.
updating?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I've got is I've got a couple of pieces out there in the world now, a couple of novels, actually, novel length, books. One is with independent publishers. It's the story of a mother whose young child has past life memories of the Vietnam War,
Oh,
alternating with the story of the soldier whose memories the kid has. So one chapter is the mom, one chapter is the soldier. Boom, boom, in parallel, in a parallel world there where you get a glance at one and then the other. So that's out at independent presses. So if there are any editors of independent presses listening who want to contact me, I'd be glad to send it your way. I've also got a book that is the story of a female astronomer who leaves her mother behind in Cleveland. Her mother has just been diagnosed with ALS. They're very close. She leaves her mom behind. She goes to Hawaii for a fellowship, goes to school. She falls into a romantic triangle with a fellow that is in the program with her, but also with a native Hawaiian, a guy who's a surfer, who also protests the building of telescopes on the tops of mountains. So
oh,
yeah, so right away she's sort of there's a point of
big
clash, and
conflict.
yeah. And then there's a huge celestial discovery, which kind of changes everything. So that's the one I'm sending to agents, and hopefully somebody will like it.
Oh my gosh, they both sound so exciting. And starting in January, we're doing something different. We're doing author takeovers. So where I won't be there, but the author will uh, man Power Books Live and do whatever they get to take over. They get to talk
Yeah.
about their book. They get to, and obviously we'll still, we'll carry the book, but maybe you'll come back in the future and take over. That would be so cool.
I would love that. That would be
Yeah, that would
fantastic.
be so cool. I know that you also do editing, or at least you did. I don't know if you still do. What do you say to authors out there who are trying to figure out how to get their work out? What would you say?
Yeah, I have a lot of advice. I actually do a class that's called Path to Publication occasionally. And, the first thing I say is write and rewrite and feel comfortable staying with your material until it gets where it needs to be. Feel comfortable doing it and redoing it, that, you're in control, you're the God here, and you get to make the choices and
Oh, I
save
love
the,
that.
yeah, save the old drafts and rework them. Get a good group of peers that you can share work with who can give you feedback. They will point up things that you think you put on the page that you did not put on the page. Uh,
Um,
yeah, and if you find something that you think is good and you've sent it around and nobody's picked it up, feel free to contact a developmental editor and work with somebody who's actually sat in the editing chair. So a lot of these folks are people who used to work for publishing houses who know exactly what those editors are looking for, and they can let you in on that secret. So don't be afraid to invest in working with a developmental editor. The other thing I say is be fearless in submitting your work. My publishing credits come from years of just being a relentless submitter of stories to literary journals. And I mean, if I really believed in it, I'd really send it. you know. And so one of the stories in my book got published in the Antioch Review, and they're hard to get into. Like, what, they're incredibly hard to get into. The guy had it for a year before he called me, and it was the story Religion. And he said, you know, I'm taking this because it's funny, it's satire, and we don't get a lot of that. And so that was a huge bump for me in confidence and also in credibility to have that happen. And it was because I was courageous enough to say, I'm sending to them. I don't care if they are a big deal. And I, at this point, I haven't done much. I'm sending to them, and I believe in myself. I'm going to go forward fearlessly. And so that's what I really urge folks to do, that for themselves, to believe in themselves, to work hard and just put it out there in the world, you know.
Believe that you're a big deal, right? Believe
Yeah,
you're a big deal.
that's right.
The deal is the publisher that you're sending it to.
Yeah.
Do you use any services, or do you just sit there and grind yourself? Do you use like a because there's something out there where they look at your work, and I forgot what it's called, but they look at your work and then they actually submit for you. Do you do anything like that, or do you do it all yourself?
I do it all myself.
Do it
And
all
you know what?
yourself.
Yeah, and
Second
finding,
job.
yeah, right. And finding out about the universe of literary journals is tough. And so there's a website called Perpetual Folly, put together by a writer named Clifford Garstang, Garstang. And he has a ranking of literary journals in fiction, nonfiction, and poetry according to their nominations for the Pushcart Prize.
Oh.
So yeah, and so it's a great resource. So when I'm like, oh gosh, where should I send? I'll go to Cliff's website and I'll take a look at his listings, and I'll begin to call names of journals off of that. That way I don't have to keep it all in my head all the time. I know I've got a go-to place. Yeah.
Perpetual Folly.
Perpetual Folly. Yeah.
Oh, but what an interesting name. Like,
Yeah.
it's a perpetual folly that you keep submitting your work, right? Authors, we have a strange sense of humor.
We have to survive. Yeah.
We do. We absolutely do. What else do you want readers to know about you? Like, I like to ask fun questions sometimes. Like what's your favorite kind of music?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm funny. I've got, like, my two favorite musicians are Tony Bennett and Neil Young. So
Oh, okay.
very different. Tony Bennett.
Excellent. Both excellent.
Yeah. I mean, I love those classic songs because they all tell stories. And I
Yeah.
had a chance to see him in concert, and he's such a showman. He's so good.
Yeah.
Neil Young, on the other hand, has that horrible raspy voice, but I think some of his songs are beautiful and really sad, and so there's something about that appeals to me.
Appeals to you.
Yeah. So
It's awesome. And your favorite kind of food?
oh gosh, most any kind of food, but I'd probably have to say dessert. I'm really into sugar. And
You order dessert first?
well, if I look at the dessert menu first, for sure. Yeah. So, oh, and my big thing is I love to, like, get mail order food, like the cake that they make in Louisiana that's supposed to be so great, and whenever I have a little extra money and can afford to do that sort of thing, I'll do that, because I can't get down there now. So why not just try something special from there? So,
Oh, how wonderful.
yeah.
What has been like the best buy? Like, what was the thing that you got that you were like, whoa, this was like totally worth it?
Yeah, recently I got, and so through the mail order thing, Goldbelly, the mail order site Goldbelly, there was a place called Sugaree's, which is a hilarious name, and they had a sour cream pound cake, and so that was fantastic. I ate a little bit of it, stuck the rest of it in the freezer, so that when I'm having that bad day, I know it's down there waiting for me.
Oh yes, you can savor it, right?
Yeah,
And it's kind of like good food is like a good story, right? You can savor it, and it tells you so. I think that's true of music and food, right? It tells you something about the person. I have a friend that we went out and she bought this dessert and she took it home, right? And like a week later, she was still eating it. And I said, you didn't eat it all at once? And she's like, no, I have a little bit here and then a little bit there. And I thought to myself, that stuff would be gone. I would just, if I didn't eat it in the restaurant, it certainly wouldn't last a week, right?
Right.
Oh, but she was still, I thought that was really special that she was sort of nibbling, here and there and extending the experience, So
Yeah.
interesting. I was like, okay. And your favorite book written by a woman?
Oh gosh. I really love a book called Abide with Me by Elizabeth Strout. She wrote Olive Kitteridge, which everybody knows. This
Uh-huh.
is an earlier book about a religious man. He's a God, now he's a clergyman, and his wife dies, and he's got a little kid. He's got a little girl, and she's really sad. And it's about sadness and loss. And I think it's a really beautiful book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, we'll have to check it out. We'll
Yeah.
have to carry it too. That would be cool. So we've talked about the stories and we've talked about in general the themes. Which one is a happy story, and would you like to read it?
Let me see if I can pinpoint a happy story
Or
here.
three? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Ironically, I'm having a little bit of trouble coming up with a story that could necessarily be classified as happy. But I will say the story Kodachrome, it's not a sad story. It's just a curious story, because one of the things I like very much to do is to give my characters obsessions. And
Oh, yes, that's right.
yeah. And so in this instance, I have given this young girl an obsession with the idea of finding her own inner colors. Um, so I'll read Kodachrome here for you.
I'd love that.
Mama never knew about the pictures, the ones I found, the one I took, or the one that was taken of me. Her idea of a picture was the family photo in the Slocum Baptist Church directory, all of us with perfectly combed hair and wearing the same fake smile. I found the magazine during spring cleaning. It lay under my parents' mattress, pinned against the hard metal box spring. There was a lady on the front in her nightie, and not one of those flannel ones I wear in the wintertime. Despite being well worn, its pages were still glossy. When the light hit the page, it left a shine that reminded me of the sun hitting the window of Goody's candy store in the late afternoon. Inside, naked women were on their knees, lying on shack carpets, sprawled across modern furniture with their legs wide open. I saw the colors: bright red lipstick, raven black, and golden blonde hair, every shade of pink. I'd seen Mama's body plenty of times, interrupting her bath by perching on the toilet lid down to tell her about what had happened at school that day. Compared to these women, Mama looked faded, used up, stretched out. If I'd taken I'd take the magazine out when Mama was at her card party or at the grocery. I was always careful to put it back in exactly the same place. We'd just gotten a Kodak Instamatic with a Magic Cube flash. I loved snapping the small glass cube with the sketch of the sun on it into place. I'd look through the viewfinder and expect to see something extraordinary. What I saw was Mama and Daddy, same as ever, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. I'd wait until they started fidgeting, hoping to uncover something new. The pictures were nothing special, except sometimes their eyes were red. Later, I would refer to my parents as traditional, but when I was 12, they just seemed unbearably dull. My mama had been a home ec major at the University of Kentucky, where she learned to make a perfect pie crust. My daddy loved walking in the woods and spent hours in the basement separating screws by size and placing them into empty coffee cans. The thought of them doing what the pictures suggested was beyond imagining. If they had to do it, I was sure my mama would imagine assembling a perfect casserole. My daddy would be thinking about what lay beneath the hood of his car. Slocum, where I'd lived forever, was especially boring. I was just plain old Hannah Starnes with dirty blonde hair and long legs that made me look like a stork. If only I could get a picture that showed my true colors. One Saturday, I faked sick by holding a warm washcloth to my forehead for 15 minutes. It's not bad, but she's warm, Mama told Daddy. They decided I should stay home. I snuck the Instamatic upstairs and took a picture of myself. I lay back on the bed and pulled up my t-shirt. My sweat-covered hands shook. Point, aim. The camera slipped from my fingers as I pressed the button. Pop. Our last flash cube gone. I used up the rest of the roll, taking pictures of our cat Max lying in the sun on the front porch. I rode my bike to South Point and paid my own money to get the pictures developed. My picture was a blur. I wanted to believe that the smudge of pink I saw was my nipple. That was the year Jasper Max came to town. He was different with his beard and the jacket with the elbow patches. Miss Allen, the school librarian, said he was famous for taking pictures of the war in Vietnam. He was traveling across the country taking pictures for the bicentennial. He showed up at the church supper with his camera and spent almost the whole time walking from table to table, introducing himself. I watched him sitting on a park bench, taking pictures of the garden club ladies working on beds of petunias. On Saturday, Jasper Max stood on the bleachers, taking shots of the boys scattered across the dusty brown baseball diamond. He almost got a picture of Abby Linder as she decorated the window of the candy store. She held a large model of a lollipop in one hand and wagged her finger at Jasper with the other hand. He shrugged and moved slowly down the street in search of another subject. He was even in the graveyard as my friends and I played hide and seek, our stealthy movements accompanied by the click of his camera. I jumped from behind a gravestone and made a face at the camera, eyes crossed, tongue to the side. His laugh was rich and deep. I laughed too. He raised his camera and looked at me through the viewfinder. I stuck my tongue out and then hopped on my bike and headed home. I saw him again on the bench outside of Goody's. He let me touch the camera, hold it to my eye. The town looked different through that lens. The courthouse, library, even the grocery store was important. Afterward, I gave him some good and plenties. He ate every one. From then on, Jasper Max and I were friends. He told me about lenses and apertures, and I introduced him to bottle caps and jujubes. He told me he was from Boston. He said it just like that, and I asked if that was near Boston, and he laughed his big laugh. I liked the look on his face when he saw something he wanted to capture, and the way he waited for just the right moment to take the shot. I'd watch him shifting from foot to foot until I heard the click. Jasper Max wanted to take my family's picture. I knew he would be able to help me see my own colors. I told him Mama wanted him to come on a Wednesday afternoon. That was the day she put on her fancy clothes and had lunch with her friends in Andersonville. Wednesday afternoon, I put on a pair of Mama's high heels and wobbled over to the closet and picked out my prettiest dress, the one with the princess neckline dotted with small yellow flowers. I felt grown up letting Jasper into the house. Our living room had a big bay window. Jasper said the light was good and set up his camera there. I looked around. Polished wood floor, our old couch covered with a crochet throw. No white rug, shag carpeting, or leopard print. This would have to do. Where are your folks? He asked. They probably got delayed at the hardware store. Why don't you get a shot of me to warm up? I stood in front of the window, swaying a bit on the high heels. When Jasper leaned down to take the lens off the camera, I slid off my dress. The air felt cold on my breast. Jasper looked up, his eyes filled with surprise. He told me to get dressed. I reached back and grabbed the throw from the couch and wrapped it around my bare shoulders. The throw smelled of popcorn and cherry soda. Suddenly shy, I folded my arms in front of me. I felt the warmth of the sun as it shone through the window behind me, illuminating my colors. I smiled at Jasper and heard the click of his camera. He took several shots. Then it was over. With her arms crossed, covered with the Afghan, Jasper could see the woman she would become. She looked him right in the eye, her chin up, a slight smile on her lips. The bright sun shone through the bay window, illuminating her. He took the picture quickly, praying that her parents wouldn't drive up. "Why did you take off your clothes?" he asked. "I wanted to be seen in all my colors," she said. It was a curious answer, one that he didn't understand. The picture of her standing at the window would become one of his favorites from his time on the road, capturing her strength, innocence, and possibility. "They aren't due any time soon?" Jasper asked. "No," Hannah admitted. Jasper packed up his camera as Hannah put her dress back on. "I expected to feel different, older somehow, but I didn't. I wondered about the picture he took of me if my colors had shown through." School began again in late August. I stopped looking at the magazine. The Instamatic gathered dust in the closet and was replaced by other passions, a new transistor radio, the music of Elton John. I almost forgot about Jasper altogether. When I was a senior, my class took a field trip to the Indianapolis Museum. As I walked through the museum, I saw Jasper's name over the door of a gallery. There was a special exhibit of his work. I saw a picture of a toddler building a sandcastle, Terry from the diner holding a plate of pancakes, and Pete Phillips standing in the forest with steam rising from his outstretched hands and a look of bliss on his face. Then I glanced at the hollowed out frame of a burning barn with flames still rising and a boy standing in the doorway, covering his eyes. My photograph was in the right corner. It was smaller than I thought it would be. I stood wrapped in the old blanket, the sun forming a halo behind me. It was a good likeness. I looked hopeful, expectant, but I never did get to see my colors. The picture was in black and white.
Oh my goodness. That is I don't know, when I was learning about Flash, I think they called it the good surprise or the perfect surprise, something I forgot. But that, I mean, that is the piece de resistance. I mean, it was in black and white. Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, she finally got to see it. It was,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. But so many themes in this one, you know. She's wanting to come of age, right? It's sort of a, she's exploring herself, and you know, all this interest, and then she happens upon a partner who doesn't take advantage of her. You know, because I was a little afraid at first. I was like, oh gosh, I didn't get a chance to read that one, and
Yeah.
so I was a little afraid at first, and then I was like, oh, he just took the pictures, yay, you know. And, you know, and he was like, "Let me get out of here before I miss." But I mean, just so interesting how she was exploring herself, and I don't even know if she knew she was exploring sexuality. Do you
Yeah. There's a certain innocence to her. She doesn't
know?
quite get it. She gets obsessed with the colors, but she doesn't quite think about the nudity part of it, and that's what
Yeah,
makes her different, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Exquisite. Oh my gosh,
Thank you.
exquisite writing. I just love it. Is Slocum a real place?
It's not. It's
Oh,
not. You know, I made it up. There are all kinds of funny towns around Kentucky with funny names, but mainly what I wanted was this idea. You know, in small. My mom grew up in English, Indiana, across the river from Louisville here, and in small towns, people think they know each other. I mean, they think they really know each other, but the truth is, they've all got these private lives and these secrets, and so I thought to set it in a small town was going to exert some pressure on the stories where it's the difference between what is and appearances, you know, and
yeah,
it's a question of what we keep to ourselves and what we share with other people. It really helped. Um, it really helped me sort of up the volume on some of the stories.
that's really interesting. The secrets behind the appearances, right? We have so much of that in the world, and you know, in our private lives, and people see you and they think you're fine. And you know, I remember I was recovering from a bout of COVID, and I took this photo, and I was feeling better, so I'd kind of gotten dressed up a little bit and everything. And my cousin posted this prayer, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling better, dude. Did you not get that? You know, like I think it's just interesting that sometimes we look different from what's going on inside, right? There's just
Right, right.
so nobody on the outside probably would have even imagined that this young woman, this little girl turning into a young woman, was imagining herself in these kinds of poses that she's seeing in this magazine. So nobody would, I'm sure that would have been the furthest thing from anybody's mind. And it was kind of funny how she seems to tease him a little bit with the tongue wagging and riding off on the bicycle. Like she has no idea what she's up to.
Right, right. She really, really doesn't. She really doesn't get the implications of that. She's part kid and part grown up. That the way we are when we're on the cusp there, and we know certain things and don't know other things, and it's kind of a
Yeah,
dangerous place to be.
yeah. But I love that her vulnerability was not used against her. Because that happens to women, right? Well, it happens to everybody, but it just seems like as we talk about Lost Girls, I'm thinking about Diane Reeves singing Endangered Species. I don't know if you know that song, but
No.
if you don't, Google it. And
Okay.
um, I am a woman. I am an endangered species.
Wow.
Uh, and there's much more to it, and it delves into the power of the woman as well. But it seems that even today, we are an endangered species. I mean, we're still being snatched up. We're still being raped. We're still being uh, penalized for being who we are.
Right.
Uh, just so, and it makes me wonder. I mean, of all the things that are still going on today, that I don't know. I guess in a hopeful person would hope that it would change by now. That's
Right.
one of the biggest pieces, and it feels, being a woman of color, it feels like, whoa, you know,
No doubt.
is there any safe, we've got the woman thing going on,
Right.
and now we got the woman of color thing going on. And it's like, whoa, are we safe anywhere? Like,
Right.
where are we safe at, Ellen? Are we safe in our imaginations, maybe?
I love that. I love that idea. And we're safe, and we hopefully are safe in conversation with each other,
Yeah,
in fellowship with each other as we come together through stories or movies, or as we come together to share our varied experiences. That's where I really find that safety is.
yeah.
I've always been drawn to these questions of equality, and I've spent the last 16 or 17 years doing contract work for a foundation in Kentucky called the Kentucky Foundation for Women, which funds feminist artists across the state of Kentucky.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, feminist artists working for social change. And so with a real intent to, open up the world and see things more clearly and change the things that desperately need to be changed. And God knows, here in Kentucky, there's so much that needs to be done. And so, but yeah, I've seen women come together in community. And again, when I came across what you were doing, I thought, wait a minute, this is something I want to be a part of, because I think that's where we get our safety, that and when we step forward and reach out and hold each other's hands as we walk through these experiences, these really tough experiences that have to do with the life as a woman.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree with you, and I'm so happy that you found us and that we found you, and I think that's true. Community of women is really a safe place for us, and I've tried to make that I mean, it's a linchpin of all my work, uh,
yeah,
as a visual artist, as a writer. Everything is about women and elevating women and finding voice, and I don't know about you, but I found my voice and my creativity, and it was interesting because I always thought it was in my brain, like it was in my smarts. And
Uh-huh.
at 40 something, I thought, oh no, it's in my creativity. Or maybe it's all of those things, but the creativity really sort of came in and kind of, took over. And I think that is a real place of safety for women is, well, we are the original creators, right? Without us, there's no life. And so I think we carry that through in in all our endeavors, our writing and holding hands. And you certainly, with this work, have begun to reach out and hold hands with so many women. And I just thank you for, because I know as an author how hard it is sometimes to just sit down and write,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh
Before
yeah.
you're there, you're inspired and you want to do it, but there's just all these other things, right? There's all these other things in life, and it's just so hard for us to take time for ourselves. So the
It
fact
is.
that you did and you persevered and you believed,
Well, and piece by piece, story by story.
yeah.
I really do just try to take it that way. Take it that when I don't have the energy to think of the whole thing, I'll think about the next sentence and then
Yeah,
the next page. And
on the next page.
yeah.
Yeah. I just love it. I just love it. And you're a fellow teacher.
Yes.
Do you teach in grade school, university, or just privately, or?
I spent the first 10 years of my career as an adjunct faculty at local universities teaching public speaking and group process and um, interpersonal communication, but then stepped away from that. And so now what I do is I teach through small private online places. So I teach through the Loft Literary Center in Minneapolis.
Uh-huh.
I've, I've got a class that's coming up in a couple weeks here in food writing, food
Oh,
traditions.
interesting.
Yeah, talking.
Food
Yeah,
writing.
that's right.
What about that sour cream cake? Oh,
That's right. Merge those passions for sure.
yeah.
So that'll be great teaching people about writing about their own food tradition. I also teach through the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning in Lexington, Kentucky. I've taught writing poems about your life experience with them. Because that's something everybody can feel free to walk into the room knowing that they've had experiences that they want to share with other people. And it sort of puts us all on the same ground there so that we can begin to talk about what makes a good poem.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting to meet another former adjunct. Well, I'm a current adjunct.
Yeah.
I want to be teaching more creative writing than what I'm teaching, but I'm teaching rhetoric and composition. But there is a place for that, and I just carry on my same work of creating community and safety. For all of us, I just do the same. I just bring those same themes to my classroom. But it's always nice to meet a fellow teacher. And do you get anything special out of teaching, like
Oh,
different from your writing?
I do. I do. The experience of teaching, the experience of creating a safe place for people. I recently taught that food writing class through the Carnegie Center, and the women who came into the room and the way we were able to talk and finding them, watching them get comfortable and begin to feel good enough to express themselves, and just the gratification of creating an atmosphere where creativity can thrive. But then also you hear people tell their stories and the words they choose and all of that. And so I always walk away with new ways to look at how to talk about writing or new ways to write, new perspectives. And so that part's really fantastic. And yeah, But that the main thing for me though is really to create that a welcoming atmosphere of equality where we all know that we've got something to give, because I remember when I first started writing how scary it is to even begin to put any of it out there.
Yeah.
So
Like, who's
really,
gonna want to read that,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that goes through your head, it goes
right,
through your head.
sure.
Or you have in your mind a particular audience for your narrative, and then to hear a voice say, "But there are other people who would be interested in this."
Right.
That happened to me with a teacher, an advisor, a male advisor, read
Yeah.
my work, and he said, "Well, there's other people, other people are interested in that." And I thought, "Oh, okay." I mean, 'cause it was like complete opposite of me, and I'm thinking, "Oh, okay."
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah.
And does that happen? I mean, have you met people that have gotten something out of your work that you wouldn't even expect?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's been really fantastic for people to, to talk to me about points of connection that they've had, or the way they read the story, and it's totally different than the way I thought it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, for instance, somebody thought the protagonist in Kodachrome might have some developmental things going on because she was so innocent, and
Oh, really?
I thought that's really intriguing. I mean, that's not what I intended, but
That's
hey,
innocent. Anyway.
yeah. Yeah, and then it's just with the teaching thing. And I'm sure this has happened to you. It's like dropping a pebble into a pond and watching the reverberations. I used to teach public speaking, and so I ran into a former student in a shopping center, and I said, "Oh," she said, "Hey, you taught me such and so," and I said, "Oh, wow." I said, I wonder if do you ever use any of that anymore?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm a hostage negotiator for the police."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so all of those persuasive skills, all of those conversational skills, something she desperately needs to bring with her to work every day, and that felt amazing. That
I'm
felt
glad
like,
it did.
yeah, yeah, that was
Gotta
pretty
be in one of your
fantastic.
stories now. You've got to
Yeah.
tell your story.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a little bit, do you think, of magical realism in some of your work? Uh, do you think so? Are you attracted to the sort of magical, supernatural?
That's funny. I think I'm the kind of person who might flirt with it, but probably isn't going to full on go there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I don't trust myself to go there because that you got to be it's really it's its own thing.
It is its own
But
thing.
definitely like to have those hints of that where people are starting to think, wait a minute, um, yeah. So, and it may be that as I grow as a writer, that's a direction I'll go in.
It might
Um,
be. It might be, but I'm so excited that we're going to continue to talk and fellowship with each other, and I want you to come back and take over because I think that would be totally awesome. One of your you have a I don't know if you call it in the music industry you call it a label mate, but one of my former guests, uh, Tavi Taylor Black, is on Touchpoint, and we had a great time. She invited some friends of hers that were inspirations for the book. So I don't know if I mean, I mean, I have real people that you can invite, but we did a panel show. But I'd love to see us do more things. I just want authors to come on and have a good time and talk up their books and talk up their work and just meet new people and bring old people with them and all of that because um, I my original idea was that I would be the interviewer on Power Books Live. However, there's so many things to do to build the bookstore and to build the brand and to build that community that I think it would just be so cool just to have authors take over. So you've got to come back. You've got
oh,
to come back next year and take over.
gladly do it. Be glad to do it. And I'm so glad you mentioned Tavi because she's so amazing. I love her work so very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know she saw that you were going to be on, and she's probably going to watch the replay, which if anybody cares, we are, and I know you all care. We've been live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and then you can watch it at any time on YouTube. from anywhere in the world at any time. It has been such a pleasure to be on with you.
Oh, you
Yes,
too. You
yes.
too.
I look forward to future engagement, and you have a great day and get a little writing done.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.